Hello and welcome to our Nonlinear blog series. My name is Angie Kretzschmar and I'm an enterprise consultant with Nonlinear. I'm here with my colleague Amanda Holtstrom, and today we're going to be talking to you about techniques you can use to improve your intranet. So Amanda, we hear a lot about the importance of good content on an intranet. Can you tell us a bit in your experience about what defines good content?
Sure, Angie. So I think we'll talk about three things today. So the first one being rotted content. So content that's redundant, outdated, and trivial. This is usually the lowest hanging fruit for when people are trying to improve the content on their internet, to get rid of the content that's duplicated and redundant, outdated content. So usually these things, it's fairly easy to find those types of content just by looking at your last modified date. And then trivial content, so content that maybe isn't paying its way. So we want to see lots of traffic to the content on our intranet. And if there's been investment in a page and there's not a lot of visits to it, it may be one of those more trivial pages. It could also be that it's difficult to find, but it could also be that it's trivial. So that's one category. The second category, I think, to get the right content on your internet, you really need to understand what your users are after. So doing some task analysis around the common activities that people are doing, primarily with back office functions like HR and finance. Also, a lot of the intranet's about making sure that the right people can connect with one another. So ensuring that profiles are up to date and that profiles are present is another really important thing to making sure that the right content is there. And I think if I had to name a third thing that qualifies content for being right, I would look to the layout, so the visual design of that content. It's very easy to author content in large blocks, and that makes the content hard to scan. It also makes it very easy to ignore it or quickly hop away from it. So ensuring you have a good set of heading styles and that your content authors know how to use them, I think that's another piece that really determines the right content for the internet.
Those are great points, absolutely. And metadata, of course, plays an important part in making sure people within your enterprise can find the information that they need to. Can you speak a bit about the different types of metadata and how it can be used effectively?
Sure. So I've heard metadata kind of classified, again, into three groups. Descriptive metadata, so metadata that describes what's in the content. So if we're looking at documents, you may say this is an expense report or a news bulletin or memo. Administrative metadata, so we can consider this the security groups or the classification of the content. So if we are applying security classification, things that help guide the system administrators or the content administrators in how to deal with the content. And then the third kind is kind of the default metadata, so things that the system captures automatically, like last modified date, name of the content, who uploaded it, those types of things. So those three pieces of metadata, I think, when you talk about those types of metadata, capturing those in a lightweight way so that it's easy for your users to enter them is really important when trying to ensure that the content, and sometimes it's massive amounts of content, can easily be searched through and waded through by those people looking for I guess, the right article on the internet or the right process or even sometimes the right tools or person to speak to.
Absolutely. Sometimes feels like a needle in a haystack problem. So
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Another problem we've all had before is sort of, you're searching through a massive intranet and you finally get down a path and you think you've found what you need, and then you don't have access to what you need to see. And that's certainly a frustration for people within big enterprises and medium-sized ones as well. So making sure that the right people have access to the right content is, vital to the success and efficiency and effectiveness of the intranet. So what advice do you have in your experience for listeners about how to make sure that the right people can see the right things?
I think, okay, so I'll hit on two topics. The first one, I think you described, which is I finally drilled down deep enough into this content tree and I can see the document that I want to open, but I don't have access to it. So generally, the message that's displayed when you don't have access to something is fairly generic. It doesn't really give you much help, and sometimes it can end up flooding the help desk. You can imagine HR sending out, here's the new expense template, or here's some really interesting news, and not having secured it or made it public to the whole organization. And now we have lots of people hitting this link and getting that generic error message that's telling them to go call their help desk. So it's fairly easy in these more modern web content management systems or even intranet portals these days to customize that message so that you can actually include the author's name and sometimes even their email address if you have Active Directory or whatever employee kind of repository like directory, Active Directory or another employee authentication system integrated. You can usually pull out the person's name, their contact information, and display it just automatically. That really helps in stopping that flooding of the help desk or the frustration that people can have when they're sent a link that they can't access. So that's one thing. The second one is when we think about securing content, that there's a good information management policy around this to guide the people who are securing content. So some organizations prefer to say that only people who need to see this content should have access to it, and in that case, the right for everyone to read is denied. Usually, intranets take the second approach, which is everyone is granted access unless explicitly denied. So provided you're publishing content on the internet and you're not working on a top secret initiative that needs to be released in a timely fashion, you're probably working with content that everyone can see once it's published. And in that situation, it really comes down to ensuring the right people have access to the intranet itself. And what that means is periodically reviewing and auditing your security groups. So whether you're using Active Directory or kind of the repository-specific list of security groups, going through the names of people who are members of those groups, and usually the administrators know who the people are. In the case where there's tens or even hundreds of thousands of people listed in those security groups, getting a list from your Active Directory administrator of the people whose accounts have been disabled recently, so within the past year or so, and then kind of cross-referencing that against the members of the security groups will help you ensure that the right content authors have access to the right areas. Sometimes, too, depending if you have organizational information captured in that employee directory system, you'll also get an idea if their department or the place where they sit in the organizational hierarchy has changed. And usually when that changes, if you have a good information management policy around which security group they should be a member of, you can make that change to update the members of this proper security group.
Sure. Certainly a big issue in organizations where there's a lot of frequent reorganization of people and resources. Having a good look at that policy and making sure content access is updated accordingly is no mean feat, probably, for big companies. So, fantastic. Well, thanks for sharing your thoughts this evening, Vanda.
Thank you very much, Angie.
For tuning in to our Nonlinear blog series.